everybody. What a great day. It's been it's been a few weeks. We were on a hiatus for a couple of weeks because of the holidays, and now here we are back. And I'm so excited about today because one of my most favorite people in the world is about to join us. So that's really exciting. Dan Tate is having connection issues, he just told me, so he may or may not be joining us. I'm not sure. So it's live, people. Here we are live. Anyway, today we are starting our January off with some really great talk with Sarah Pettit, who we're going to let her tell you a little about herself because she's got a lot of amazing things to tell. But I'm excited for the conversation because we want to talk a little bit about vulnerability and being open to things and possibilities and starting the new year off in a great way. So let's not wait any longer because who wants to see me, right? You all came to see Sarah. So let's bring Sarah in and see you. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Brandon.
How are you?
I am doing so well and so excited to be here with you today.
Sarah is not only super talented at everything she does, she's a working mom. And
Yes.
so she is literally outside of her daughter's ballet class doing this with us today.
Live from my
Live,
car.
live from your
So,
car. I love it. I love it.
single mom life.
I love it. And Dan's here now. Hey, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
It's so
Sorry.
good to see your face, Dan. All right, so we're gonna jump right in because there is so much to ask Sarah that I can't even begin to chat. But we do want to remind everyone, if you're watching live, chime in with questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. You can do that in the comment section where you're watching from, and we will relay those questions on. But Sarah, why don't we just start with a little bit of an introduction about who you are and tell us, about you.
Okay, so hello, everyone out there. My name is Sarah Pettit. I currently, as Brandon mentioned, I'm a mom of a lovely 8-year-old daughter. I'm a graduate student right now. I'm going to Georgetown University. I'm studying integrated marketing and communications. I have my undergrad from Westminster College in communications. And so I work full time as a marketer and as someone in public relations. And then Brandon knows me. I feel like this is very relevant information to share. Brandon knows me because we worked together. He worked as my director and really as my coach when I was competing in the Miss America program, which was an incredible experience for me. It really paid for my associate's degree and like a smidgen of Westminster College. But I learned a lot of really wonderful and valuable lessons and skill sets in the Miss America program that really changed the direction of my life. So that's how I know Brandon. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to talk about the topic of vulnerability today. We're going to talk about really three things around
Okay,
vulnerability.
wait, Sarah,
Um,
before you go,
I'm like, let's roll right into it.
I feel like you've undersold yourself already because
Oh, heavens.
you are you have an amazing job with an amazing company. You have
Yes.
done so much in your short career because you're only, what are you now, 23?
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
That's right. That is my age. I'm not going to correct you there. That's my age.
right. So you had amazing internships. You've done so many things and you've risen the corporate ladder as a working mom
Yes.
and done some amazing things. So before we go into vulnerability, I want you to tell me, what was the hardest part about doing all of this while being a mom? Are you there? Can you hear me? Can you? Oh, no, you're muted. No, you're muted. I can't hear you. We can't hear you. Well, this is very awkward, Sarah. We cannot hear a word you're saying. She's clicking something. She's still clicking. Oh, it's good. No, keep trying. Don't give up. No, we can't hear you. It's weird. Dan, while she works on connection issues, tell us how your holidays were.
My holidays were spent with family,
Yeah.
and I'll leave it at that. No, I'm just joking. We actually had a really good holiday season. It was nice to hang out with. It was nice to just not have a ton of things to do.
Yeah,
It
sure,
was
sure.
very casual, very laid back. Um, it's something I used to always laugh about um, the song. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas when they say, "And mom and dad can hardly wait for school to start again." Well, that has elevated to new levels because I work from home now, and my wife is also a teacher. Um, so during that 2 weeks break, I'm like, everybody just needs to go back to school so that I can go back to work because it's very, very difficult. Although my wife and kids they do a good job of staying away
Yeah.
as much as they can, but yeah.
You should have just come to OPA and used an office here. But so, right, you could have had your own office, and most of the time it was empty here. But Sarah just texted me, and this is ironic. She got a text from her daughter's school while we were talking, which caused her to get disconnected. So she's back on. But like, could that not have been a better segue to what we were talking about, which was how does Sarah do it all and be a mom?
And be vulnerable. Right? Like, so yes, here's a vulnerable moment. My daughter's school just called and it disconnected. So I couldn't see or hear you guys. So technical difficulties here, but we're back.
Yes. So tell us about how it's been climbing this corporate ladder, doing all the amazing things you've done, and being a mom.
It's work. It's work. It is there is nothing more, there's no role that is more important to me than the one that I have as being a mom. But in addition to that, having a full-time job, doing grad school, doing volunteer work, Brandon, as you know, it can be a lot to juggle. And so I think that what you do is you really take opportunities and try and find opportunities to connect with yourself. I am a big fan of yoga. I'm a big fan of getting into the gym, and just having, even if it's a half an hour or 45 minutes a day, to yourself so that you can really just reconnect and rejuvenate.
Okay, that's great, and I think it's great advice. I have in the new year especially started in the morning because if you know me at all, like the first thing I do in the morning is like, let's check my phone. Who needs my attention? And I've started really consciously making the choice to be like, no, I'm not checking it first thing in the morning. And if Dan Tate has texted me, he can wait because it's always
He's
Dan Tate,
he's going to have to wait a minute, and you're not wrong.
right?
I think especially with the news, because we see so much negative news that comes out today. Is that how you want to start your day? Maybe you want to start with a meditation. Maybe you want to start with some really great music. Maybe you want to start with a breathing exercise, but find that moment for yourself. That's a great tip that you just shared, Brandon.
Well, I'll be here all week. Tip your waiters.
See,
All
and
right.
the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is go back to bed. So,
That's not true, Dan. You get up at like 4 in the morning.
but I still go back to bed. No, so to me, one of the in the corporate world, one of the best classes I ever attended was time management, and they talked about that similar thing, like don't be a slave to email and now instant messengers and all those things, because nothing distracts more than people who think they need your time right now.
Right.
So true.
Right. And Dan, you may have heard of the theory from Dale Carnegie, where they say live in day-tight compartments, which is essentially that you have so much time that's scheduled to be at work, to be in this particular meeting, um, to be at home, to be with your family. So live in those day-tight compartments.
That's great advice. That's amazing. All right, Sarah, tell me about. I want to be clear. When we recruited Sarah to be a guest, her first, and she was like, I want to talk about being vulnerable. And I have known Sarah a long time, and I have some ideas on why this conversation is so important for Sarah right now. But I want you to tell us, what vulnerability, that's a hard word, means to you, and how you're working yourself through it.
Well, essentially, vulnerability is choosing not to hide your emotions or desires from others, right? And so, if you are in a position where you are fearing rejection, or you're afraid that maybe you'll offend someone, or that you're going to turn somebody off, you're going to lose a friend, you're going to lose just by sharing your thoughts, feelings, desires, emotions with others, that's when you are not being vulnerable. And let's talk about how important it is to be vulnerable. So, if you've being vulnerable really means that you are creating a connection, a real human connection with others. Because the truth is, and I was told from a very fabulous pageant coach, a very high regarded one at one point, that perfection, nobody can relate to it. So if you are always perfect all the time, then you're not relatable, and people don't know how to get to know you. So essentially, when you are vulnerable, you are creating stronger bonds and connections with the people that you know, love, and work with.
Give me an example of a time that you failed at being vulnerable. Like, I want to know more because, like, I think we've all been there, but what does it look like?
My word, I think that there are times that we all fail at being vulnerable. And maybe you can look at your personal relationships and you go, man, maybe, because again, being vulnerable isn't sharing how you really feel. How many times do we do that realistically? Because you're afraid of something. So when you feel that in yourself, that's a good time to stop, to pause, and then to say, okay, I need to make sure that I'm being truly authentic with who I am. So here's one example. And Brandon, you're probably going to laugh at this, but here we are, one mom moment. We've talked a lot about, me being a mom and that role. So I heard from Lauren Bug this weekend. She was like, Mom, and Lauren, if you've seen Lauren, has this long, gorgeous hair. Um, and she says, Mom, I think I would like to cut my hair. Brandon already knows. This is why he's laughing and smiling. And I was like, okay, really? Well, tell me about it. Why do you want to cut your hair? And I'm just taking kind of an inventory. She's like, I think it would look nice. And I'm really like wrestling, like, because her hair is so like, I want to keep it long. I want to make sure she has the autonomy that she needs to. And instead of me being like, okay, Bug, I'm not sure that I would do this, I listened and I said, okay, well, I'll thoughtfully consider this. We're going to consider this and then we'll see. I mean, but that was a moment that Lauren was being very vulnerable with me, and one where maybe I wasn't being as vulnerable with her because I was nervous. Like, okay, I don't know if this is something that I can do. Um, I don't know if I can let her cut her hair. But there are plenty of times. There are times that I haven't been vulnerable, even in grad school, where I've needed help and didn't ask for it, and should have emailed a professor and didn't, and so the grade comes back a little lower than what you wanted it to, on a paper or in work or just in relationships. Again, I think you just, again, when you are finding that you are not being authentic and real, that you are not genuinely speaking how you feel, check yourself, because you're not being vulnerable.
That is like, that just hit, Sarah. That hit right in the, yeah. Dan, go ahead. I see you thinking. Go ahead. Dan.
Okay, so and just to share just a little bit about me, Sarah, here. A lot of people who know me really well know that I am very measured in most things that I do. I'm very thoughtful about what I say. I try very hard to be aware of how other people might receive me being vulnerable, and then I make a decision on whether or not I'm going to be vulnerable with them or not, right? So my question is, because it's the way I've lived almost my entire, like, almost my entire adult life anyway. And so when you talk so freely and easily about being vulnerable, there's a huge wall that goes up in front of my face that says, yeah, not me, right? And I think that the reason why is because vulnerability, um, I think that the benefit of it is it lets you know that people who have accepted you have accepted you, and that's very fulfilling and very rewarding, and it creates those deep connections. So my question for you is, how do you handle those who don't? Because if you're vulnerable and people don't accept you, then you also know that they're really not accepting you for who you are.
Right. Right. And I think in life, we're going to know that there are going to be those that do accept us and those that don't. And truly, if they're not accepting you, is that a space that you want to be in anyway? You know, it's best to, I think, be out of those relationships if you're not being accepted for who you are authentically.
Oh, it's happening again, Sarah.
Oh no.
No, not again. She got another text.
You
She said,
also have to
Okay, there it
recognize
is.
and know when I'm being authentic and real and I love myself. um, it's really indifferent at the end of the day as to how others may feel,
I,
because you are true with yourself. There's a strong foundation there. Does that make sense, Dan?
It does. Um,
I think one of the things, sorry, Dan, but I think one of the things that stands out is in human nature. One of the first things we say to each other. Oh, she can't hear us again. She can. Oh, there she is. Do you hear us, Sarah? Sarah, do you hear us?
So all of a sudden you sound like a chipmunk, Brandon. This is a great vulnerable again moment. Technical difficulties, we may be just riddled with them today.
You sound normal to me.
I can't even make out what you're saying, Brandon, or Deanne. I can't even tell. And the two
okay.
of you are blacked out on my screen, so I'm hoping that you're hearing me okay. What I will do right now, just because we're kind of in this weird, I do want to talk about how you know if you're not being vulnerable enough. So first of all, you know you're not being vulnerable enough when you find that you are in a lot of conversations that lack depth. So you hop on a phone call with a good friend, a colleague, and the conversation is kind of boring. That may mean that you're not being vulnerable enough. Another way that you can check yourself to see if you're being vulnerable enough is if you're stuck in your job, or you feel like, if you feel stuck in your job, if you feel stuck in your lifestyle and you're like, gosh, this isn't who I am, then you're likely not being vulnerable enough. Again, we've talked about, authenticity and being genuine. So that's one thing. I think this is a really interesting point. If you feel intimidated to connect with others, if you are intimidated to maybe smile at a stranger or say hello, that is also a cue that you may not be vulnerable enough, which also ties into how you dress and groom yourself. So if you're finding that maybe you're dressing down too often, you feel uncomfortable dressing up and going out, that's another sign that maybe I'm not being vulnerable enough, because I'm afraid of how people may look at me, or how they're going to accept me, or will people like my outfit, will they, won't. So that is another area that you can say, man, maybe I'm not being too vulnerable, or I'm not being vulnerable enough.
Sarah, can you hear me this time? Nope. Oh, she's checking. I sent her a text so that she could read our text message questions, because I was like, I have a question. So she's checking my text, which is, the question I have is, the first thing we ask each other in the world is, how are you? And most of the time people just respond, I'm great. But how many of us are actually great in that moment? Is that a lack of vulnerability, or is it a fact that we don't have human connection?
So I think Dan kind of talked about this a little earlier. It's like, okay, so who am I going to choose to be vulnerable with, and who am I not? And I think, take inventory of that. Make sure that you're being yourself authentically. But when you say, I'm doing great, I don't believe, I think that again, you kind of want to determine who am I talking to? And does it make sense to go into things? I will often say, I mean, those that know me this year know that I'm going to be very vulnerable right now. I went through a divorce this year. And for the first time over the Christmas holiday, I was in a position where I didn't have my daughter. And I will tell you, as a mom, there is nothing harder than thinking about not being with your baby who you've delivered, you've had all of these years, and knowing that you're not going to be spending Christmas with them for the first time. And I have, from a lot of people, have said to me, "Hey, Sarah, how was Christmas?" And, there are those that I might say, "It was great." And then there are those that I know and that, my colleagues, my friends, those that I want to continue to have a very close relationship with, I let them know, my Christmas was different this year. It was great. And I did have a great holiday season, was able to celebrate with Lauren, on Christmas Eve. And so, but it was different. And it was great, but it was different. And it was adjustment. And that's real. That's vulnerable. And that's the truth. It was a different Christmas for me this year. And that's okay, right? That's the expectation and kind of what things are going to look like as I go through being a single mom and being, going through a divorce. So, again, very vulnerable, but that's the truth. Christmas was different. It didn't have to be, and it was great, but it was different.
Did you learn? Is this vulnerability sort of stuff that you're learning since your divorce? I'm not sure if she can hear me again. Dan, can you hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay. Oh, she's asking me the question. Hold on. She's hold on. I'm typing it, everyone. This is live, people. Did you learn this during the divorce or after to be more vulnerable? That was hard word to type. I had to sound it out. Okay, she's coming back any second. This is the weirdest interview we've ever done.
Okay. So, I think you learn a lot about yourself when you go through a divorce, honestly, and you learn about how you communicate with others and how you communicated with your spouse. So there's a lot of reflection, or I think for many people, and there was certainly a lot of reflection for me. And I do feel like I've become more vulnerable. But my hope would be that for all of us, that it doesn't have to be something like a divorce, but that we can all aim to be a better version of ourselves every day. I have a mantra, I help me to be a blessing in the lives of others. And that's something that I tell myself, every morning when I wake up, and something that I constantly remind myself. And so hopefully you don't have to go through something earth shattering like a divorce. But I did learn some things, and I did reflect from going through that.
Okay, so we have sent her our last question. And the last question is, how would you suggest recommending to start practicing vulnerability or becoming more vulnerable? So that's the question we just asked that she's going to answer. This is really an epic interview, and I'm so glad we're doing it this way.
So how you can be more vulnerable. First thing, if you're not good at something, feel free to admit it. Like, hey, I'm not good at math. It's not my thing. Feel free to admit it. People are attracted to people that have rough edges, that aren't perfect. So don't be afraid to say when you're not good at something. Another thing that you can do is take responsibility. Be accountable. If you've made a mistake, own up to it. Take responsibility. That's something else that people that are vulnerable do, and that they do very well. If somebody has hurt you, maybe they've said something that was hurtful, or something happened in that regard, let them know. Or on the opposite spectrum of that, maybe you see somebody that you admire or you respect, or you think it is there's something about them that is attractive to you. Let them know. that is also being vulnerable, which kind of ties back to, if I'm going to smile at a stranger, if I'm going to say hello, if I'm going to tell the people that I love why I love them, and why they're important and meaningful and special in my life. That is another way that you can be more vulnerable with others. Just some quick and easy tips.
Sarah, I'm sure you can't hear us still. You're amazing. I just texted her and told her thank you. But we, like, you're amazing. She's going to come back any second. She's going to read my text. There it is. Go, Sarah.
Brandon, Dan, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really enjoyed our time together and would love to talk about being vulnerable at any time. And we'll be vulnerable with you too anytime.
Thank you, Sarah. You're the best.
Ciao. We'll
Bye.
see you guys.
Okay, so that was an interesting little interview that we just did. If I'm being vulnerable, that was scary.
Hey, look, all I can say is it's difficult, and I'm going to take a very small amount of credit, but most of it goes to you and Sarah. Man, to be able to just adjust on the fly,
yeah,
and say, what we usually do didn't work, but both of you adjusted and made it something. We got through it. It was great.
Well, and I think like one of the things, I totally agree. Thank you. And it comes from all of my many years of experience in producing live television.
Right.
No, but I think one of the things she said that's sticking with me really hard is like, if you're not being vulnerable in your relationships, then something's wrong, and that doesn't mean a necessarily bad relationship, but it does mean like, if you're, if you really want to be friends with somebody and you're not being vulnerable, then there's something you need to address. And it doesn't mean that you can't address it, but like, that's such an interesting statement, because I know there are often times that people I consider my friends, I'm much more like, everything's great. You know what I mean? Like, because there are times that I don't want to tell Dan Tate that, I don't know, that I'm not doing good and I would rather crawl back in bed and die.
Well, so I think one of the other things to talk about, and I think that, so to me, vulnerability, as I mentioned, it's difficult for me. But I think this could be a topic that could be talked about for hours, but the flip side of that is how do you receive vulnerability? Like, I think that's a key piece, because I'm also one of those people who, like, if someone starts really talking and being very vulnerable with me, I'm instantly like, oh.
Well, how do you want me to respond? Because you want to, as a person, you want to give the other person the best that you can and give them what they need, and sometimes you don't have any idea what that is. And
right,
probably the best thing to say is, how can I help you in this moment? You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know. I don't know.
Right, because if someone's being vulnerable, the truth is, even some of the people that are closest to me, if they're vulnerable with me and tell me something that's going on, I probably have very limited perspective for that situation. Even if I've been through it myself, I'm still limited to my own experience. So what do I do?
Yeah.
Are they coming to me for sage wisdom? Most of the time, probably not. But so what am I supposed to say? And so I think that's a really helpful discussion. And I think it's also important to think about. No, see, now I'm twisting things to fit my own narrative. So that's why I'm careful about being vulnerable. See, I'm right. No,
right.
No, Sarah's right. Dang it.
But it does say a lot about how we as humans can do better to connect more, be more vulnerable with each other. Because, I mean, I don't know, I guess maybe some during COVID especially, I found myself being a lot more honest with people, because I think before that it was less, it was much more not appropriate. I don't know. But during COVID, I found myself being much more honest and like, I'm really having a hard day. Like, I'm not doing well, and I think we had to get through it. And I hope that we can sort of bring some of that back as we hopefully one day move out of the pandemic, but that's a topic for another day, not today. Not today. Anyway, well, Dan, next week we have Paige, Paige Welsh, who oddly enough is I know her through Sarah and together anyway. So Paige is going to talk about growing up and scholarships and going to school, and like she is an amazing young woman. I don't know how she looks now, but she's like 20 anyway, but she's got a lot to say about the world, and so it's going to be a great conversation with her too.
Excellent.
I know, right?
What
All
I
right.
like most about this is that you keep coming up with all these people that I don't know, and I learn a lot.
Well, that is that Dan Tate. That's going to be like on the promo. You keep coming up all these people I don't know, and I learn a lot. So that's going to be our new promo. But yes, so all right, it's a new year. There's lots of new things happening, and yeah, go out, support the arts, however you can in this moment. Find a way to support the arts. Because even if it is during what might be a COVID spike, the arts still need support. So find a way to help them and support them anywhere and anywhere you can. Okay, bye, Dan Tate.
Bye.
This has been a lovely Thursday afternoon.
Yes, isn't it?
Bye.